when did you become aware of the Muslim grooming gangs? And when you became aware, were you following someone who was broadcasting it, or were you just finding out from first-hand experience?
So, when I was 12, 11, 12, I had a cousin, it's actually my mum's cousin, who was found naked, running through the streets, 13 years old. When she woke up, she was in a flat in Bury Park in Luton with lots of bearded Muslim men who were raping her. Now, she was actually taken by the prostitutes. The prostitutes found her, they rang her dad. Her dad went and got her. The family rang the police. I remember all of these conversations happening. The family rang the police. The police did nothing. And now everyone understands this. They did nothing. Do you know what the police said? She's a drug addict. Yeah, she was. Because she'd been groomed. And she'd been put on drugs. And she was addicted to drugs. And in the end, her family would lock her in the house and lock her in there. She'd climb out the window to go back to them. Yeah, to get raped. To get drugs. And she was a child. So, and do you know how many beautiful girls I know who grew up in my town that are gone? They're gone. And I'll give another one example of that. Stacey Dooley is from Luton. She just won Dancing on Ice, is it? I grew up with Stacey. Stacey come back to Luton to do a documentary. Many of you would have seen it. When she sat down with me, she said, "What's happening?" She left Luton. She's been very successful. Well done to her. But when she come back, I said, "Well, Stacey," she said, "What's happened?" I said, "You know your ex-boyfriend?" She's come out recently, actually, talking about her upbringing, how she escaped the ghetto. I said, "Stacey, you know your ex-boyfriend?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, he's now a radical Muslim. He converted in prison. You know your best friend when you was here?" And Stacey done all the drama and all that sort of stuff as a youngster. And so did her best friend. Beautiful girl. Absolutely beautiful girl. In fact, I saw her best friend's mum one New Year's Eve, and she was just crying her eyes out. And I said, "We're supposed to just tolerate this." I said, "You need to go and speak to your best friend's mum and ask where their daughter is, when the last time they saw their daughter. And then tell that story, because that's the real story. The real story of girls within our community being taken from their families, groomed, prostituted, beaten, raped. And meanwhile, and do you know what? And I spoke about this for years, and do you know what's just happened in the last 4 months, which hasn't hit any publicity yet? 26 Muslim men have been arrested for historic grooming offences in Luton at Wardown Park. An issue, and this is the thing that, so I spoke about this, and I didn't just speak about it, so you understand, so people can understand the depths of, do you know, I'll give one example. When you saw trouble on the streets at English Defence League rallies, there was trouble at those protests. I went and spent a night with a family in Blackburn, and I heard the horrific stories of what was happening to their 11 and 12-year-old daughter. And their brother was there, and he was probably 17, 18. And I sat and heard about all these horrific stories of the rapes of their daughter. And how the police, again, had done nothing. When we had the demonstration the next day, and there was a lot of trouble, and I've always gone down to try and calm our supporters down. Who's at the front of that demonstration going absolutely insane? That young girl's brother. Who am I to even, when you've got those failures, and you know the most disgusting thing, I remember sitting in prison. When the Rotherham scandal broke, I was sat in prison, HMP Winchester, and I sat there and watched. And I see a girl, and I know that girl. And she went to Rotherham to protest outside Sean Wright, who was in charge of the police there because he was refusing to resign. So the English Defence League were then protesting. And I looked and I saw a girl, and she's from Birmingham, and I know her. And I know what's happened to her growing up. I know her history. She's a complete victim of gangs of men who have abused and raped her and tortured her. And then I watched as the snotty-nosed journalist looked down his nose upon her and labelled her as a far-right protester and an extremist. She's not an extremist, she's a victim. So I know I get so... When you've met the families I've met and heard the stories I've heard, another one, a young girl from Blackpool, and her father, and do you know what, it's actually got quite a nice ending, this one. Her father, I went to meet with him, his daughter's gone, they've took his daughter, took her from, and once the girl gets 16, 17, once they get to 16, 17, the police aren't interested, they're not helping, they're still victims, they've been groomed. They take, when your family kick up too much of a fuss, this is just simple process that they do in every town. They move her. So she'll be taken from Blackpool, she was taken to Oldham. She's then in Oldham. The Muslim man that used to rape that girl would ring the girl's dad and leave the phone on the side. And he'd be crying, telling me, whilst he's having to listen, and not just the Muslim, the young Muslim who's raping her, he's raping her with his own dad. This is the crimes that are happening. So he has to listen. And he was and I've spent years then. I kept in contact with him, and in fact, I got a phone call from him probably 2 years ago, 18 months ago, crying. I'm probably gonna well up even talking about it.
It's okay. Carry on. Johnson Ward.
No, to say that his daughter was home, that his daughter would come back.
Tommy, no wonder you're upset with the stories you're describing. But it's important here that we show the truth.
It's infuriating, that's what it is. It's infuriating to see the way, do you know when you saw Jack Straw talk about it? He's talking about them like they're statistics. They're daughters, man. They're sisters. And they're our daughters and our sisters. And you act and you betray us or the people talking about it. And then, do you know Rotherham? Do you know after the Rotherham scandal broke? Do you know grants were given, I think £128,000 to fight Islamophobia in Rotherham? Do you know there's still 40 victims waiting on a waiting list for counselling in that town? There's still 40 young girls who are waiting. Do you know a girl died 4 weeks ago from a drug overdose? Yeah, she's 30. She died of a drug overdose. That's the knock-on from the grooming. Do you know the people in authority in that town who let it happen? All the people in those councils that let it happen, the police forces that let it happen, and the government have accepted that they let it happen. And still the money and the support has not been given to help those victims. Instead, the money's been ploughed and thrown into the Islamic community to protect them from mean words on Twitter. When you put it all out there, it's absolutely how this country's even, how every man in this country is letting this happen or let it happen. And it's still happening. And that's, so the grooming, when you understand the level of abuse, of torture, and this isn't just rape, this isn't about men satisfying their sexual needs. This is about raping girls with broken bottles, sticking claw hammers up children. This is about torture, setting fire to their genitals. That's what this is about. Nailing their tongues to tables. It's not sexual gratification. That's the destruction of our daughters. Religiously motivated destruction of our daughters. And it's not, and we're supposed to just, Rotherham, so you can understand the size of the problem. Rotherham has a Muslim population of 10,000 people. Out of that 10,000 people, 2,800 fit the age criteria of men that could be involved in grooming, i.e. 15 up to 60. 2,800. Do you know how many of those men are under current investigation by the police in Rotherham? 550. 20% of the Muslim men in that town are under investigation. You're not talking about one or two. And what you're talking about for the first time, in this country anyway, for the first time is these rapes are brothers, cousins, brother-in-laws, fathers and sons, work colleagues. It's that accepted within that community. Why? And when you try and draw these, to prevent anything, you have to understand it. And you have to be able to talk about it to prevent it. You have to understand it. And to understand it, we have to understand why. I have a population of, and this is where it gets dark. Rotherham, 3%, 4% of Rotherham is Muslim. 1,400 victims. Telford, one of the other famous grooming towns, 1,000 victims, 2 dead, set on fire, murdered. 1% of Telford is Muslim. What do you think it's like in the towns and cities where 30% are Muslim, like Luton or Bradford? Do you understand why the in-depth report that was given on Rotherham? Families and mothers have been trying to get one in Keighley and Bradford for the last 10 years, but they're getting refused. Do you know why they're getting refused? Because if you understood the true scale of this problem, the real number of victims, how many rapes there are, that's what they're hiding. I generally believe that Telford and Rotherham have been used as scapegoat towns and cities to hide the reality. Yeah, 1,400 is bad. 40,000 is a lot worse. You start getting the numbers in those towns and cities. You start hearing the stories from those cities.
A loathsome, obnoxious, repellent individual.
Today we have learned that yesterday the violent racist thug and fraudster known as Stephen Yatsley Lennon, or Tommy Robinson, was invited onto the estate and wined and dined in the House of Lords yesterday. Mr. Speaker, I understand that sometimes we have to engage in views that one might not agree with, but surely the fact that a man who is as guilty as he is on stirring up racial hatred, organising violent, thuggish crimes around the country, setting up the EDL and everything that comes with it, crosses a line. And such a person shouldn't be invited to walk amongst us on the parliamentary estate.
I share his assessment of the individual concerned. A loathsome, obnoxious, repellent individual. And I make no bones about my view being the same as his on that front.
The double standards here are simply amazing. Known terrorist organisations are welcomed into Parliament, and the Speaker, he says nothing. Now we deal with Tommy's criminal convictions and his relationship with the state. Tommy, you have been branded a thug, a fraudster and a criminal. So taking it from the very beginning, tell us the truth.
So, where I grew up, I'll be honest, a lot of my friends were getting into trouble. I always avoided that. And I left school and I went for an apprenticeship that 550 people applied for and 5 people got it as an aeronautical engineer for Britannia Airways. So I started my apprenticeship with Britannia Airways. Now, I went out with my now wife, the mother of my children, my fiance at the time, and we had a verbal disagreement at 2 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, we were loud. I was loud. We were shouting at each other. We were young and we were drunk. There was not one physical moment to it. There never has been in my entire life with any female. Now, a man turned out in the street in a pair of shorts. Now, this is all documented. People can read all of this. Now, he ran at me and he rugby tackled me to the floor. He admitted that in court. He said he thought I was going to be abusive to my partner. He thought. Now, what I then realised was he was an armed response police officer. So he's used to telling people shut up, and they shut up because he's got a gun. Now on that evening he told me to shut up. I didn't. He rugby tackled me to the floor. When I got up, I beat him up. I don't deny that. I beat him up. And the judge accepted that what I did was self-defence until I kicked him when he went down. Now, again, growing up in Luton, and you think of things differently. It's only now, I'm 36 years old now, I'm a father of 3, and you can assess situations very different.
How old were you at the time?
I was 20 years old. My first ever offence. My friends had all got into trouble. I stayed out of it. I got my...
Did you have any previous convictions for football hooliganism?
No, I'd had no arrests. I'd had nothing. No arrests. It was my first brush with the law. Now, what turns out that Christopher Dalton was his name, the armed response police officer. He was an off-duty police officer. I was convicted of kicking him when he went down. I was given 12 months in jail. Again, anyone can read the documents. He admitted that he assaulted me first. The judge accepted I acted in self-defence until I kicked him when he was down. And then what the judge said is, you had 8 seconds. 8 seconds to calm down during that point. Come on, man. And again, I'd had a few beers. Yeah, I was angry. I was angry because he'd ruined my jeans when he threw me to the floor. And the way I viewed it was, we had a fight. He lost. That's not... Again, it's like I don't know what much difference could happen. But do I think I deserve a year in prison? My first ever offence? No. Did it change my life forever? Yes. I went to jail. I come out of prison. I appealed my conviction. It's actually, this way you can read about the case, it went to the Royal Courts of Justice. What I tried saying is, because I was interviewed when I was in prison, they assess you ready to come out. And I remember saying, I don't know what I'd do different. If someone comes up to me tonight and throws me on the floor when I'm out in the street, yeah, I was wrong and I was being loud and abusive and shouting. So I was wrong. I did wake people up. I was young. And if someone comes out and throws me on the floor, the way I saw it at that time was I fought back. In hindsight, years on, I don't know. But that I come out of prison and what I felt that I was put into a system that people are meant to be taken out of. So I come out of jail because of September the 11th. They changed all the laws in the airports. Yeah, so I'll bring it back to Islam. I'll always get it back to Islam. But because of September the 11th, they changed the laws in the airports where if you had a criminal record, you couldn't get an airport pass, an airside pass. For the job I done, I needed an airside pass. My career was gone. So I come out of prison without a career, young, angry. And with nothing. So I appealed it and I asked in court, I said, like, if you revoke this, I can go back to work. If you don't, I don't know what I'm going to do. And it was at that point there where I talk about in my book where I say, look, I had a couple of mad years. I started becoming the worries that I had before when my friends were, whether they'd be getting into trouble, I didn't care anymore at that time. And I was angry. And I was angry. And do you know what? In fact, I'm still angry. I still get upset about that case because I don't think I should have been sent to prison. I don't think I should have lost my career. If he hadn't physically assaulted me, none of that would have happened. Yeah, I shouldn't have kicked him in the head. I shouldn't have. But I was young. And I was young. And
But you agree you shouldn't have kicked him?
no, I shouldn't have kicked him in the head. I shouldn't have kicked him in the head. But do you know what else I agree? What else? I used to view things. I got interviewed by a journalist, and the way to deal with things and how things are dealt with. The way I thought, the way growing up, how they're dealt with in Luton. Yeah, that's it. You just fight. You sort it out. And then growing up now, and it's like, look, not everywhere's like Luton. Not everyone has that idea or that way. But I'd say that's what it was like growing up where I was. You had to, and you have to. And yeah, now I won't bring my children up wanting that, saying that's how you deal with your problems. But I shouldn't have kicked him in the head. And do you know what? So I lost my career for that. that I worked hard for, that I studied hard for.
How many GCSEs did you get in school? What qualifications did you get?
I got 11 GCSEs. I got an A in maths, which I'm still proud of. I got an A in maths, I got 5 Bs and I got 5 Cs. And to be honest, I was mischievous. I was a Jack the Lad. If I would have tried, I'd have breezed everyone because I was intelligent at school. I think I can remember my mum. My mum was a single parent when I was young. And I remember having my own, the classes questions were here, my questions were there. Because I far a bit ahead of the rest of them. When that was in junior school. That was from my mum. And my mum's not even that smart, which is mad because even that, my mum's not that smart. But she just used to sit there regularly every night doing work. So I found the academic side of school I found it quite easy. Without studying or trying, I breezed my GCSEs. I got my career.
Okay, well you clearly did wrong there. You had a pretty hefty sentence for your first offence. You lost your career. But what was the next brush with the law?
My next brush with the law. So I come out of prison. I admit all of this, yeah. So I started attending football, and I started involving myself in the football scene, and going to football with the lads all the time. And then years went on, and do you know what was so lucky? When I used to work at Britannia Airways as an apprentice, I'd finish work on a Friday at 3:30. I'd be picked up by an Irishman, a developer, a builder. They had the contract in Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch is a city bank in London. And I'd go and work the entire night. And I didn't miss one Friday night for 2 years. And I'd go and work, and we'd take down the full ceilings. I'd be a labourer. But I used to double my weekly wage for my apprenticeship, doing that. And I'd done it every week, and I didn't let him down once. And then when I come out of jail, I contacted him. I said, look, I'm stuck here. I'm on my arse. And he said, come work for me. So I went to work for him. I was doing a bit of everything. And then his plumber was going abroad, moving to Australia in, say, 6 months. I said, who's going to do your plumbing contracts after this? Because I knew that he was building a lot of flats, a lot of houses. He was very successful at the time. Had hundreds of properties. He said, I don't know. I said, let me do them. Give me the plumbing jobs. And he's like, what do you know about plumbing? What do you know about plumbing? I said, I'll learn. I'll learn now. I'll learn quick. Just give me the job. I'll get the plumbers. And then he did. And I then took his plumbing contracts. And I remember, and then I'd had a couple of mad years in my life. And then I'd got in with him. And there was another gentleman, a wonderful gentleman called Dave Richmond, who sadly passed away. Now, Dave didn't have any children, but Dave owned 700 properties, I think. Dave owns hundreds of properties. He had a Bentley, had a Ferrari, he had a Range Rover. And I met him, I got introduced to him through work, and we just got on. Like, I loved him. I loved his attitude to life and everything. And he used to let me, so I moved out to Marbella. He had 14 properties there, I managed his properties there. And he helped me then. So he helped me get my first property. And then I went on and I got the buzz for it as well. And I went on, by the time I was 25, when I started the English Defence League, I owned 7 properties. I had a plumbing business. And when we talk about, so when I had a plumbing business, and then my friend, again, the other developer friend, the Irishman, he was opening a hairdresser's and he was built a block of flats. We'd done all the plumbing on them, there were 19 flats. So we'd done the plumbing contracts. I said, what's the other shop? He said, I don't know. I said, let me have the shop. So he gave me the shop, and I opened a tanning studio, which a lot of people talk about. So he had hair at Unit 1, and I copied his identical name, so I called it Tanning at Unit 2, which when it went on later and I started the English Defence League, I don't think he's happy about, because both shops looked like they were mine. But yeah, so by that point at 25, my life I was flying as a young man. I was flying. I was successful. I was driven. I was wanting. My passion was to be successful.
Were you married at this point?
No, I wasn't married. I had my partner. Yeah. My passion was to make money. My passion was to make money. And that's it. And more.
But where does that lead to the next crime?
The next crime? So I'd had no brushes with any law. And then I started the English Defence League. And then
You started what?
the English Defence League. I started the EDL.
That is not a crime.
No, but that's when it started. Instantly started. I was arrested in the first 6 months 3 times. 3 big raids.
What were you convicted of?
No, nothing to start with. So the first raid I was held at Luton Airport by Special Branch. They then raided my property with machine gun.
In order to look at Tommy's crimes, one also needs to look at how the state treated Tommy. They are both different sides of the same coin, and it was the formation of the EDL that triggered a process by the state. And Tommy explained this very well in an interview with American Channel.
What I wasn't ready for, and what shocked me, and what I still can't comprehend, is the fact that the state supported, attacked, persecuted my family, my wife, my mother. They kicked off our doors. They come in with machine guns. The level that I still can't even, until you read my full book and understand the level that they went to shut me up, to silence me. Because a lot of the things we started bringing up and talking about were things they've conspired to keep us as secrets for 20 years, such as the rape jihad across the whole of our country, which has been, they now call it grooming in the UK, which is groups of Muslim men raping young English girls. So anyone who's in your country, I don't know if you've heard of the Rotherham scandal. There was a scandal in Rotherham where in this one small town in the north of England, 1,400 girls are documented to have been sexually exploited and groomed and raped by Muslim men. Yeah,
right.
This is in an area called South Yorkshire. What South Yorkshire Police did is, this was before this scandal had broke. We were talking about it, and it hadn't been in the newspapers, it hadn't been in the media. I went to Luton Airport. I was arrested by Special Branch. They then executed warrants at my wife's house and at my mother and father's house. They had sent 15 officers to each house. The crime they come in for was criminal damage. No joke, criminal damage. They seized all my computers, all my phones. When they give me bail conditions, my bail date was to coincide with a date that I was due to be talking in South Yorkshire at a demonstration about grooming. My bail conditions were not to contact 3 or more English Defence League supporters. So straight away, this is politically motivated. From the start, I knew it was. What they then did is 3 weeks later, they dropped all the charges. Now, I put in a complaint through the IPCC, which is the Independent Police Complaints Commission. What it turned out, before this, at that arrest, that they had a statement from the hotel manager. I was arrested for a £30, $50 worth of criminal damage on a hotel room door. They had a statement from the manager of the hotel clearly stating before they raided me, they had nothing to do with me.
So just imagine that. 30 armed police going to 2 premises involving his parents in their house as well as Tommy's house for an alleged offence involving £30 worth of criminal damage. That is total abuse of power. And to make it even worse, they knew before they raided that the charge was not true. They then imposed bail conditions that were political. This is the state against Tommy. No wonder his book is called Enemy of the State.
Right.
So they fabricated this.
Well, not only that, but no one goes to, I mean, you have rock stars who don't go to jail where, God forbid, you run a black light over the hotel room when they're done with it. They've been completely trashed.
Well, I went to jail this was the first incident. Then they come through 3 months later. They arrested my wife. They arrested me on tax irregularities, money laundering. They went through my entire life. They basically got every one of my files, not just mine,
right.
My mother's, my father's, my wife's, her brother, my cousin, my aunt, my whole family. And they took the whole family's finances to pieces. They went back 10 years.
So is that the main reason when you were imprisoned was tax? Is that what they used, kind of an Al Capone thing?
Yeah, they were full Al Capone.
In the end, no, I got not guilty on tax. I walked on tax.
Okay,
they said
okay, so we don't have too much, but what put you in the slammer?
They in the slammer for lending. I lent my brother-in-law £20,000. You know mortgage forms?
Yeah.
So in the UK, we had self-certification mortgages. So you put down enough of a deposit and you get a mortgage and they ask you how much you earn. And if he earned £10,000 a year, and on the form he put £20,000. He got a mortgage. This is in 2008. He got a mortgage. He owned the house for 9 months and he sold the property. Yeah. I lent him the deposit. That's what I went to prison for.
Because your brother claimed he made more than he did.
He claimed when he got the mortgage, but
Right.
the mortgage company were paid back. The mortgage company lost
No,
their
no, no.
money.
I know. I just want to yeah, I get it. So that's what they nailed you for. Okay, so you're in jail.
So at this point, the state had failed on 2 charges, but managed to find a third charge for what they call fraud. And technically it is. Of course, nobody lost a cent. And to do that, they went through the family's records going back 10 years, looking for anything they could pin on Tommy Robinson. But now, in jail for that fraud charge, what was to happen to him?
Okay, is it true that they tried to put you in with Islamic inmates who tried to have a go at you? Not to laugh, but
There were 6 Muslims who got 30 years. They were caught with guns, IEDs, suicide notes. They were on their way to kill us. They were on their way to target me, to kill us. And they were intercepted, and there was a big court case. They got 30 years. I then go to prison for this minor paper offence, which in the UK you should go to an open prison. They took me to maximum security Wood Hill prison, HMP Wood Hill, which it holds some of the country's most feared terrorists.
right.
On my first day in there, when I was on the induction day, my door opened, and it was an ex-Royal Marine who is a prison officer, and he said, when they come to get you from this cell, do not leave this cell, your life depends on it. And I said, what? And he said, I'm telling you, do not leave this cell, your life depends on it. 20 minutes later, he's come back with 2 other prison officers, and he said, come on, you're going to B-Wing. And I'm not going anywhere. Yeah?
Right.
He said, then he says, if you don't, I'm going to arrest you.
Same guy.
Fine, arrest me. Yeah? So he arrested me. Now, he come back later and said, do you know where they were taking you? I said, where? He said, they were putting you with the 6 Muslims that are in here for planning
Oh
to
my
kill
God.
you.
So that
the
guy's your
next-
guardian angel, so to speak.
Yeah, he was. He saved my life. The very next day, I had a meeting with my solicitor in the prison. I went to the meeting with my solicitor, and then afterwards, I'm getting walked back by prison officers, and there's a waiting room. They open the door to the waiting room. I see the beard straight away, so I know what's happening. I don't know in America.
Well,
but
they could be hipsters.
no, in the UK prisons, they are like ISIS training camps. Yeah,
Well,
Islam has taken over the UK prisons, and they are radicalising an army of the most hardened and toughened men in the UK. That's what's happening.
Continue.
Yeah. And from that, so the door's open. I've seen the big beards, and I know what's going to happen. I don't even sit down. The door, and the prison officers locked me in the room. They locked the door, and I was beaten. But luckily, the 3 Muslims that were in the room, they didn't have any prior knowledge by the look of it that I was going to be there. If they did, they'd have had knives, they'd have had blades, and I'd have been properly. Instead, I lost my teeth, but that's not too bad because I've got these lovely teeth now.
So they look better than most teeth in the UK.
Well, I lost all these. So
Well, they look good now.
I lost my teeth, I had my head glued up, and I was beaten to within an inch of my life.
It is worth noting at this point that the state also endangered Tommy in prison. In later imprisonments, it became a pattern by the state, even for the most minor of charges.
Simply, and that has not happened once in prison. The next time I went to the next prison, they put me on with a Somalian and 4 Muslims who had just cut someone's nose and ears off and murdered his friend.
That's what I read about.
They were doing 30 years. I was doing 8 days. They walked me into them.
Right.
So, but the lengths and the reasoning for these things is that people need to really understand how big the problem is in the UK,
Right.
and that the government and the police have conspired to help Islamify our country, to silence the critics.
Why?
And
What,
many
what
of
is
them
their
got-
reasoning, though? Here's my question. So prison, and I want to get to why you're still doing what you're doing. A lot of people would give up. So, I mean, you have a brass pair. Ultimate respect to you. But why is the UK government? Why are they so vested in this? In like just a couple phrases, why do you think they're so hardcore on this?
I think Saudi petrol dollar. I think most of them are bought. I think that many of them have got dirty hands. Many of them had dirty deals. Many of them, like the police who were targeting me in the early days from South Yorkshire, they have since been exposed as covering up the sexual rapes of 1,400 children.
Right.
Their commissioner had to resign straight away. So all these things are skeletons in their cupboards that they want to hide. Yeah.
Right.
We're coming, banging them on the streets in everyone's faces, talking about them. I was enemy number 1 for the state.
After his first imprisonment, Tommy, pretty well and understandably, became a rebel to the state. So we asked him to explain some of the other convictions.
The first one, demonstration-wise, I'll say I got done for an assault where, again, you can put the videos of this in because it was such a surreal moment. This young Oxford kid who's doing a documentary on me, Tom, his name was, And the first day I've done, I'm a wind-up, yes? The first day I've come to done documentary with him, I filled a bottle of vodka with water, right? And then I've arranged to meet him at the CAF, where our coach is going to the English Defence League demonstration. And I've come out of the shop, and I've turned up, said, you must be Tommy, and I've opened the bottle of vodka, and it's water, and I've necked it, and I threw the bottle. I said, now I'm ready for the demo, yeah? But that's just all, and I only told him 2 years later that, remember that bottle of vodka? It was water. And I've gone to, and what I said to him is, today's the day we break the back of this movement. Because the media had told everyone this is a far-right movement. We had told them from day one it's not. But within the movement, there were many with different paths, different ideologies, different thoughts. And there was a group within it called the Northwest Infidels. They splintered into the Northwest Infidels. And I'd watched and I'd been reading them and looking what they're saying in their comments. And their comments were far from what I support in any way. And we needed a break. So I said, today's the day. I'm going to call it on. And this is the only way. Again, it comes.
What do you mean by call it on?
I'm going to come up. I'm going to turn up at the demonstration and stick it on every single one of them. And I'm going to. We'd ask the police not to let them.
So you're fighting the far right?
We're going to fight them. Yeah.
So they're the far right.
They're the far right, the real far right. Yeah. So I went to the demonstration. You can actually get the speeches from this.
But do you think it's sensible to actually fight people because of their political differences?
No, the problem I said is, again, when you got where I was brought up, we'd asked the police, they don't let them in. We don't want them here. Yeah? We despise them. And then what I did is I got up on stage, and my intention was to do it in front of the world's press. I got up on stage. I got a Sikh gentleman called Amit Gurmit, and I loved him as well. He's such a good lad. But I got a Sikh gentleman. I held his hand up, and I said, "If you don't like what you see, you're in the wrong crowd." I said, "This is the English Defence League." And then I said, "So now it's time to show yourselves." And I started reading out names of the far right. I said, amongst us now, and amongst these thousands of people here, we're here, we're white, we're black. We had banners from day one, black and white unite. Yeah, the united colours of the EDL is one of our slogans, with all the different colours. Yeah? And so, but the media never tell you this. The media kept telling you that far right, racist, extremist. So I made
trying to get rid of the far right.
Trying to get rid of them.
In effect, you got prosecuted.
In effect, 40 or 50 of them come towards me. I come off the stage and I ironed one of them out. And then, but do you know what? It worked. Do you know what? From that point on, they never come again. I went home and
Then why did you leave the English Defence League? What caused you to leave?
Because when I kicked these people out, they formed their own groups. Northwest Infidels, Northeast Infidels, Southeast Alliance. They all splintered around the EDL, just completely hovering all the time, picking fault. And I remember going home and I made a video saying, listen, and this is why I say I've done more to call out the far right. I made a video and I addressed them all. And I said, I'm short, I'm fat, I'm 5'6", I'm a little white Englishman, and I'm in Luton. And I'm not hiding from you. So the far right as well, if any of you have a problem, come on down. And they come down, they come into the pub. I ended up getting called from the landlord of the pub saying there's some man in here from Newcastle. I've gone down to the pub. I've ended up having a square off with him. So these are the far right. These are the Nazis.
Okay. I've got a conviction for that.
Yes, I got conviction for far.
Let's move on to your next conviction.
My next conviction then was, in those early years, I kept getting arrested and given bail conditions. Yes. Which were to prevent me.
But they weren't convictions.
No, but
They prevent you.
So I breached my bail condition one time. I turned up dressed as a Jewish rabbi, and I got a conviction for that. That's one conviction.
Turned up as a Jewish rabbi in disguise.
Oh yeah, you've got to see the video, man. I told the police, so I liaised with the police for the demonstration in Tower Hamlets. I was banned from going, and I said to the police officer, we've got a Jewish rabbi coming to the demonstration, he's going to need an escort in. And they said, okay, and I'm banned from going. And I said, okay.
Hold on, sorry. You disguised yourself as a Jewish rabbi, and then you got a police escort in?
Oh, you've got to see the video. I turn up with the police. I turn up as a Jewish rabbi with a big beard, wearing all the black, with the curly things and with the top hat. And I walked in, and the police move everyone out of the way, and I walk straight through to the crowd of the English Defence League. I get up on stage and say, and then I'm introduced as Benjamin Kidamon. And I remember looking at the police officer who I've liaised with for the last 2 weeks. And I said, I've been waiting ages to take this off. And I took it off and his face is just like, oh. And I've got 8 days in prison for that.
Rabbi Benjamin Kinnamon. He's my way welcome, thank you.
Do you know how long I've been waiting to take this shit off? We've all seen the lengths that the British police, political policing, will go to suppress this voice. I am currently banned from attending any demonstration. I am currently banned from sending any fax, any email or any text message that promotes any demonstration. Okay? Now we are here today on September 3rd, 2011 in East London to tell you, every one of you, from the government to the police, we will not allow you to take away our democratic rights.
So Tommy Robinson intentionally sacrificed his liberty to make his political point.